The Wizard of Oz, a franchise that is over a century old but is still relevant in tons of our books, theater, film, and overall pop culture. And with every new adaptation, a new generation of Oz fans are born. So because of Wicked for Good's recent release, I decided to go back and watch every single Oz film adaptation to find out which one is truly the best. Of course, we will be using the classic tier list. We have many films to watch from 1910 all the way up to 2025, and I'll pretty much be basing my rankings off of relation to the original material, creativity, music, and overall enjoyability. So here's the tier list, with S tier being the best and D tier being the worst. Each of these tiers will correspond to the star ranking I give the films. Also, before we start, I want to give a spoiler warning for all of these films. We will be discussing the plots of all of them. So without further ado, let's get into these movies. The first film on the list is the earliest surviving Oz film, and that is The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. It's from 1910, and it's based off of the first book made by L. Frank Baum in 1900. If you didn't know, there's not just one Oz book. Baum made 14 other books for the Oz series. So every time a new book adaptation comes up, I will give a brief summary about the book, so we can compare it to the movie. We all pretty much know this story though, so I'll go over it quickly. It's about a young girl named Dorothy who lives in Kansas. Dorothy's house gets swept away by a tornado and lands in the magical land of Oz. But her house lands on the Wicked Witch of the East, which frees the citizens of Munchkinland from her rule. But this also upsets her more powerful sister, the Wicked Witch of the West. The Good Witch of the North gives Dorothy the Wicked Witch's magical silver slippers and tells her that she'll be able to go home if she follows the yellow brick road and meets the wizard. Along the way, she meets a scarecrow, a tin woodman, and a cowardly lion, all wishing to get something from the wizard: a brain, a heart, and courage. When they get to the Emerald City, the wizard says that he can help them, but only if they kill the Wicked Witch of the West. After they kill her, they find out that the wizard is a liar. He's not an actual wizard, but just a normal guy named Oscar Diggs. So after a few more adventures, she visits Glinda the Good Witch of the South, and she tells her to return home by clicking her heels together 3 times. We're off to a very interesting start with this short film. It's pretty much an extremely short version of the Wizard of Oz book with some strange changes, like Dorothy meeting the Scarecrow before she gets to Oz. The Wicked Witch is named the Witch Mamba, which is kind of confusing. Dorothy also has some random animals following her, like a mule and a cow. I'm not sure why, to be honest. And they're also kind of uncanny, since they're humans in animal costumes. But for the most part, it hits every main point of the L. Frank Baum story. But also, if you are new to the Oz franchise and wanted to understand the story, this movie wouldn't help you very much. It's all over the place and kind of confusing, so I'm gonna give this 1.5 star, and it's going in C tier. Next, we have The Patchwork Girl of Oz from 1914. Baum was involved in some of the earliest Oz films, and this was the first one he was involved with. It's based off of the 7th book in the Oz series, which is named after, and that book is from 1913. So they're very quick with this film adaptation. So the book is about a Munchkin boy named Ojo who lives with his uncle Nookie in Munchkin country. They visit their neighbor, Dr. Pippet, who is a magician. Pippet is working on a creation of a magical powder that can bring inanimate objects to life. His wife makes a life-size patchwork doll for Pippet to bring to life so they can have a maid. This powder brings the doll to life, but it also freezes Pippet's wife and Uncle Nookie. So Pippet tells Ojo to find 6 different ingredients to unfreeze them. For the movie, it's pretty much the same as the book, and it has most of the plot points. Ojo is an orphan living with Uncle Nookie. He meets Pippet and goes on the adventure with the Patchwork Girl and other friends. The movie is okay. It's a bit all over the place at times. It was kind of interesting in the beginning, but it got more boring the longer I watched it. I did like seeing this cat that looked like it was from Minecraft though, so I gave it 2 stars and it's going on C tier. But I'll put Patchwork Girl above The Wizard of Oz because I liked it slightly more. Our next movie is The Magical Cloak of Oz, also from 1914, and it's based off of Baum's 1905 book titled Queen of Zixi, which is about 2 lands that surround the land of Oz. It starts off with a queen and her fairies creating a magical cloak that grants the wearer with one unselfish wish, and the fairies say that they'll give the cloak to the first unhappy person they come across. This person is a girl named Margaret, or Fluff, who lost her parents and is abused by her aunt. While traveling to the country Knoll, her brother Timothy, or Bud, gets crowned the king because of a succession crisis, and while they're in the palace, the cloak gets passed around a lot, but it falls into the hands of Queen Zixi, who is a 600-year-old witch, but appears to be a young woman to everyone but herself. She wishes for a mirror to see how she appears to everyone else, so she tries to get the cloak by any means possible. The Magical Cloak of Oz is pretty much one-in-one with the book. The fairies make the magical cloak, give it to Fluff, she, Bud, and their aunt move to OzLand, Bud becomes the king, and Queen Zixi tries to steal the cloak. There is a weird B-plot of their donkey getting kidnapped and saving a little girl who was also kidnapped, but it was also kind of interesting. Zixi disguises herself as Fluff's maid so she can steal the cloak, but the cloak doesn't work because it's stolen. After a few more adventures, these ball-shaped guys try to take over the kingdom, and Bud befriends Zixi to reclaim the country and creates an alliance between their two kingdoms. I did kind of enjoy this movie even though it's clickbait since Oz was never mentioned at all. It takes place in a country surrounding Oz called Noland. It's the same universe, but technically it's not Oz related. I guess Baum wanted to make sure his Oz fans would watch the movie, but clickbait is kind of crazy. It was more enjoyable than the last films though, so I gave it 3 stars and it's going in B tier. The next film we have is His Majesty, the Scarecrow of Oz from 1914, which I believe is the first and only film that came before the book, since Baum made the book in 1915 to rework the film, and the book ended up being one of Baum's favorite Oz books. This is also the last film that was created by Baum. The story starts off with this guy, King Cruel, who is the ruler of Oz. He wants to marry off his niece, Princess Gloria, to this old guy, but she's in love with another man named Pon. So King Cruel hires the Wicked Witch Mombi to freeze Gloria's heart so she won't love Pon anymore. But while this is happening, Dorothy pops up in Oz and gets captured by Mombi, but then escapes. She meets Gloria and Pon, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, and the Cowardly Lion, and they have a few more adventures together. But eventually the Scarecrow stops King Cruel, becomes the King of Oz, and gets the witch to unfreeze Gloria's heart. Well, this movie was very all over the place and I didn't really understand what was happening. That's probably because the film didn't have enough title cards. I think this film is supposed to be set during or after the events of the first book because it's kind of like the Scarecrow's origin story while also having things that happened in the first book, like the Lion and the Tin Man becoming the rulers of Oz. Some of the special effects were cool, but other than that, it was kind of boring and hard to understand. So I give it 1.5 stars and it's going in C tier behind The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Now we have a big time skip from 1914 to 1925 with our next Oz film, The Wizard of Oz 1925, which is another adaptation of the first book. It starts off with a toy maker reading The Wonderful Wizard of Oz book to his granddaughter, and we see that Oz is ruled by Prime Minister King Cruel, the wizard, and a few other people. The citizens of Oz, along with Prince Kind, want the return of their rightful ruler, who was sent away many years ago. Then it goes to Dorothy, who's in Kansas, living with Uncle Henry and Aunt Em. But Uncle Henry is very abusive to Dorothy because Dorothy is not his real niece, but the true ruler of Oz, who was left at their doorstep as a baby. But she doesn't realize this until her 18th birthday, when her aunt and uncle give her a letter that says so. King Cruel sends his goons to Kansas to make sure Dorothy doesn't get the letter, but their plan fails. Then the tornado strikes, taking Dorothy, Uncle Henry, and his 3 farmhands to Oz, where the citizens declare her the princess, and King Cruel plans to marry her to keep his power. There's a lot of random filler in this movie with slapstick humor that isn't really needed for the plot. Most of it is with the 3 farmhands and Uncle Henry. There's also a love triangle with Dorothy and 2 of the farmhands that they drag out a lot. The Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion are also played by the farmhands, but they don't turn into them. They're just wearing costumes that look like these characters to hide from King Cruel. This movie is less of an adaptation of the book and more of an original movie loosely based off of The Wizard of Oz, because if they changed the characters' names up and changed the Land of Oz into something else, it would be a completely different story. Like, I don't know what type of Wizard of Oz book Grandpa was reading, but overall the movie was somewhat entertaining and visually better than the other ones, so I like that. I also like that they had some people of color in the film in the main cast. Well, that was until they were being racist to them for comedic relief. But this movie was okay, pretty mid though, so I gave it 2.5 stars, and it's going in B tier behind the Magical Cloak of Oz. Next, we're on to our first animated short film of the list, The Wizard of Oz 1933, based off of the first book. It's a film of many firsts, being the first animated film, the first one in color, and the first one with sound. But when it was released in theaters, it wasn't shown in color because Disney owned the rights to Technicolor. That greedy little rat. But anyways, let's get into the plot. It starts off with Dorothy and Toto in Kansas, but then they get swept away by a tornado and land in Oz. There they meet the Scarecrow and the Tin Man. They walk up to the Emerald City, where they're welcomed by the citizens, and they meet the wizard. The wizard puts on a magic show for them, with a hen doing tricks and laying eggs. But the hen lays an egg that grows bigger and bigger. All 5 of them try to stop it, but it finally breaks, revealing a baby chick. Then the mother hen sings Rockabye Baby for some reason. This film had me in the first half, but then the story got really random. Why is the wizard doing tricks with a random hen? And where's the cowardly lion? They just erased him from existence. I like the animation, it's very cute, but the random plot doesn't really make sense to me, and the lion erasure would not be tolerated. So I gave it 2.5 stars, and it's going in B tier, above The Wizard of Oz 1933. The first Wizard of Oz fanfiction about our favorite characters being in college was not Wicked, ladies and gentlemen. No, it was actually a 1936 student film made at the University of Michigan titled Oz University, which mixes various Oz books and puts them in a school setting. This also beats out the 1939 Wizard of Oz for being the first live-action Oz film in color. Take that, MGM. The film starts with Dorothy and the wizard looking at dissatisfied University of Michigan students who are complaining about the school. So the wizard decides to bring them to Oz University and turn them into Oz celebrities, which are various characters from the books. The characters have class, and the professor gives them an exam, so they wish to return back to U, Michigan. So this movie doesn't really have a plot, since it was made for a pageant, probably to show off their costumes, but it was pretty cool to see, and it seems like they were having fun. So shout out to you if you go to University of Michigan. I give it 2.5 stars, and it's going in B tier, below Wizard of Oz 1933. Now onto the adaptation that everyone knows and loves, The Wizard of Oz 1939, inspired by the first book of course. This is the Oz film that impacted the franchise forever, so when you think of The Wizard of Oz, you think of this movie. It's also the first full-length talking film and the first musical, so finally, no more silent films, thank you. We get much more backstory into Dorothy's life before Oz in this film, since we see Aunt Em, Uncle Henry, and the farmhands on the farm. Dorothy, being a rural girl, yearns to be somewhere else other than the farm. Her neighbor, Miss Gulch, gets bitten by Dorothy's dog Toto, so she gets an order from the sheriff to put him down. This causes Dorothy to run away from home, and she meets a charlatan that tells her to go back home because he sees in her future that Aunt Em will die from a broken heart. So Dorothy starts to go back home, but a tornado has started, and everyone already went to the storm cellar. Being unable to get in, Dorothy goes into the house, gets knocked in the head by a window, and passes out. When she wakes up, she sees that the house got caught up by the tornado, and it takes her to the Land of Oz. Then most of the events from the book play out. She still meets the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion, and adventures to the Emerald City after they kill the Wicked Witch and return to the Emerald City. Instead of the film continuing on with Dorothy finding the Good Witch to take her home, the movie ends when the wizard leaves on his hot air balloon, and then Glinda comes down to tell her to click her heels 3 times. They also changed the silver slippers into ruby slippers to show off the new Technicolor technology. That's also why they made the Wicked Witch green. They combined the Good Witch of the North and South together into one character, probably to save money by using one actor. They also made the Wicked Witch ride a broom instead of using an umbrella like she did in the novel. These changes may seem really small, but all of these eventually impacted the creation of other Oz films in the future. But I really love this film. It's very fun with great songs, great acting, beautiful sets, and beautiful costuming. And the movie definitely holds up after all those years. Unlike the movie that beat it for Best Picture. Go off the one. But this is honestly the Wizard of Oz film. So of course it deserves 5 stars and it's going in S tier. Next up, we have a gigantic jump from 1939 all the way to 1965 for this film, The Wizard of Mars, which is a sci-fi space film loosely based off of Baum's first book. It's set in 1975 with 4 astronauts, Steve, Doc, Charlie, and Dorothy, going on a trip to Mars, but they hit something in orbit and they have to do an unexpected landing. They try to survive on the red planet while witnessing many things like water creatures and lava lakes. One day a sandstorm rolls in, which reveals a golden road, which the quad follows into a stone city that has a breathable atmosphere. They find the body of a Martian who is supposedly the Wizard of Mars. They're able to communicate with him, and he tells them about the civilization before it was destroyed. So I thought this movie was really weird, but I had some high hopes for it. A space-themed Oz film seemed really cool, but I feel like this movie really had nothing to do with the Wizard of Oz at all. Most of it is just the astronauts wandering around, and no plot points of the movie actually match with the book. The only thing to do with Oz is the giant talking head, which is supposed to be a wizard, somewhat of a yellow brick road, and a girl named Dorothy. Literally nothing else has to do with Oz. Why did they even base this off of L. Frank Baum's book when it's nothing like it at all? And on top of that, the movie was boring too. So I give it 1 star and it's gotta go in D tier. Next we have The Wonderful Land of Oz, which is based off of Baum's second Oz book, The Marvelous Land of Oz from 1904. It's about an orphan boy named Tip who escapes the witch Mombi, who is his caretaker, and he goes on an adventure to find fortune with Jack the Pumpkinhead and the Sawhorse, that were both created using the magic powder of life. Emerald City gets attacked by an army, so Tip and his friends try to help the Scarecrow regain his power, since the Scarecrow is the king now after the wizard left. And Tip gets the help of the Tin Man and Glinda the Good. They also try to search for Princess Ozma, who is the long-lost daughter of the old King of Oz, who was ruler before the wizard got there. They're looking for her because the princess is the true heir to the Oz throne, but on his journey, they realize that Tip was the princess all along, and when the wizard came to power, he got Mombi to turn the princess into Tip so he could take over instead. By the end, Tip is restored into Princess Ozma, and she rules Oz in place of the Scarecrow. Now let's watch this movie. The film pretty much touches on every main point of the book. Tip creates Jack the Pumpkinhead, he runs away from Mombi, he gets to the Emerald City and sees General Ginger take over, he gets the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and others to help, and with Glinda's help, they get the witch Mombi to reveal that Tip was Princess Ozma all along. Some of the scenes from the book were removed, and they got rid of the Sawhorse, but other than that, it's pretty accurate to the book. Some of the acting was kind of bad, and overall the movie is pretty low budget, but I thought it was kind of fun and campy. And I did like the opening song. Now that was catchy. It's like one of those movies that are so bad that it's kind of good. So I gave it 3 stars and it's going in B tier, above the Magical Cloak of Oz. Next up, we have Journey Back to Oz, an animated film from 1972. It's loosely based on Baum's second book, but with Dorothy included for some reason. We start off with Dorothy in Kansas, wishing that she could return to Oz. Then a tornado comes in, sweeping she and Toto back to Oz. There she meets Jack the Pumpkinhead. Dorothy gets kidnapped by Mombi, who is the cousin of the other wicked witches in this movie. She reveals to Dorothy that she's going to take over the Emerald City with magical elephants. So Dorothy and Jack escape to the Emerald City to warn the Scarecrow since he's now the king. But it's too late and the Scarecrow gets captured by Mombi. So Dorothy goes to the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion for help, but they're not any help. So with Glinda's assistance, they're able to take Mombi down. The Scarecrow regains power over Oz, and Glinda sends Dorothy back to Kansas in a tornado. No magic slippers required this time, folks. This movie was really nothing like the second book at all. It's very, very loosely based off of it. Because where is the main character Tip? They just replaced him with Dorothy. They added the lion in when he wasn't even in the book. Princess Ozma never reclaims the throne, and why is Mombi taking over the Emerald City with random green elephants? This is basically just a dupe of the Wizard of Oz, and they just added some characters from the second book. If they wanted to make a movie when Dorothy actually goes back to Oz, they could have just used the third book, Ozma of Oz. But whatever, pretty much everything about this movie was mid, so I gave it 2.5 stars, and it's going in B tier after The Wizard of Oz 1933. Also, fun fact, Judy Garland's daughter plays Dorothy. Next up, we have 20th Century Oz from 1976, which is a road trip movie loosely based off of Baum's first book and the 1939 Wizard of Oz film. It's about a 16-year-old girl named Dorothy who goes to a rock concert with her friend. After the concert, she and her friend go with the band back in their van, but they get into a car accident and Dorothy hits her head, making her have a dream about the not-so-mystical land of Oz. Her van accidentally runs over this weird guy's brother, so he wants to get revenge. This shop owner named Glenn gives Dorothy some ruby slippers as a reward for hitting the criminal guy and tells her to go to the city to see the Wizard's concert. On her trip, she meets a stupid surfer dude, a heartless mechanic, and a timid biker. Dorothy ends up getting to the concert, but she wants to actually meet the Wizard, so her new friends try to help her find the Wizard's hotel. But then she gets kidnapped by this weird guy and almost gets SA'd. But her friends save her, and she meets the Wizard at his hotel party, and she takes a shower with him. Okay. And then she wakes up and it was just a dream. Wow, okay, so this is a very weird rock and roll version of The Wizard of Oz, draining it of all of its magic and whimsy and making it very gritty and dark, which could be good if it was actually a good movie. Most of it was pretty boring, some parts were funny, but overall it was kind of weird. I didn't like how much they sexualized Dorothy, especially since she's supposed to be a 16-year-old girl. But I guess maybe it's exposing how 70s groupie culture was? I don't know. It's definitely not for kids though, I will say that. All of the characters were parallels in the real world and in Oz, so that's interesting, much like the 1939 version and 1925 version. But I gave the film 2 stars and is going in C tier below Patchwork Girl. If 20th Century Oz is the Oz film for rock and roll lovers, then this next one is the film for the disco lovers. This film is The Wiz from 1978. It's based off of Baum's first book, and also the 1974 musical, which has the same name. It's pretty much the same plot as the 1939 MGM film, but with an all-black cast and a different soundtrack. And fun fact, I have the original musical soundtrack on vinyl. The film starts in New York City, with Aunt Em hosting a Thanksgiving dinner, where a 24-year-old Dorothy lives with her aunt and uncle. As they're cleaning up, Aunt Em talks to Dorothy about moving out of home, which Dorothy is afraid to do. Then Toto runs down the stairs and out the house into a blizzard, which sweeps he and Dorothy away to Oz, and they accidentally kill the Wicked Witch of the East. The rest of the film pretty much plays out as usual. Dorothy saves the Munchkins, meets the Good Witch of the North, she gives her the silver slippers, meets the Scarecrow, Tin Man Lion. They get to Oz, the Wiz tells them to kill the witch. They do so, find out he's a fake, and Glinda, the Good Witch of the South, tells Dorothy to get home by clicking her heels 3 times. The only thing that's really different is, instead of this film being in a mystical version of Kansas, it's a mystical version of New York City, which at times makes it a bit more scary than usual, especially if you're watching this as a kid. They age up Dorothy a bunch so Diana Ross could play her, because Dorothy is supposed to be like 11 or 12, but they make her 25. So I do wish that she was younger so we could get that childlike curiosity and wonder from the character, because Diana Ross's version is kind of more of a mature character and she just kind of seems like on the verge of crying at every part of the film. But this movie's very nostalgic for me. I probably watched it just as many, if not more times than the 1939 MGM film. There are great costumes and even better songs. Hot take, but I think the Wiz soundtrack is better than the 1939 soundtrack. Write me in the comments. But overall, I do love this film. It's a cult classic, so I have to give it 4 stars, and it's going to be our first film in A tier. This next one is a short film from 1980 titled Thanksgiving in the Land of Oz. It was a CBS Thanksgiving special, and it's loosely based on various Oz books. It starts off with Aunt Em getting ready for a Thanksgiving dinner when the wizard steals her mint pie from the windowsill. The wizard says that ever since he's returned from Oz, he's been making a turkey balloon for the Thanksgiving parade. But Dorothy accidentally floats away on it and returns back to Oz. She meets Jack the Pumpkinhead, and he tells her about Tyrone the Terrible. He brings this turkey balloon to life and steals it from Dorothy. So Dorothy tries to go to the Emerald City to get Princess Ozma's help. She meets a tiger and TikTok, a mechanical man. Oh, and her pie came to life and speaks in many different accents. Dorothy gets kidnapped by Tyrone, but after she scolds him for being a bad guy, he turns good and brings them to Emerald City. Dorothy asks Ozma if she could bring her home, even though when she returns home, Aunt Em and Uncle Henry will be going to the old folks' home and she'll be moving away with her cousins. Instead of bringing Dorothy home, Ozma decides to bring her family to Oz with their house so everyone can live there together forever. And Aunt Em hosts Thanksgiving for Dorothy and all of her friends, and even the wizard for some reason. This film was okay. It was kind of random and all over the place though. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't overly good either. It was supposed to be about Thanksgiving, but they also sing a Christmas song, so that's kind of weird. But it was fine though. Pretty mid, so I give it 3 stars, and it's going in B tier below Wonderful Land of Oz. Next up, we have an anime from 1982 titled The Wizard of Oz, which is a version of the first book. We have Dorothy in Kansas, then the tornado comes while Aunt Em and Uncle Henry are away on a trip. She gets knocked out, and of course the house falls on the Wicked Witch of the East. Thus, events goes as followed. Dorothy meets the Scarecrow, Tin Man Lion, gets to the wizard, kills the other witch, meets Glinda, goes home. This adaptation seems to be one of the most accurate film adaptations to Baum's original book. This movie has all 4 witches, and for the first time, each of Dorothy's friends sees the wizard in a different way. A giant head, a beautiful woman, a great beast, and a ball of fire. This is what happens in the book. The only thing that they didn't have was the silver shoes. Instead, they used MGM's Ruby. But this was a pretty good watch. A normal Oz remake with cute animation and being pretty accurate to the original, and the main song was pretty fire too. So I give it 3.5 stars, and it's going in A tier below The Wiz. Next, we have another very popular one, Disney's 1985 film, Return to Oz, which is a combination of the second and third Oz book, The Marvelous Land of Oz, and Ozma of Oz. So before we get into the movie, let's explain Ozma of Oz. It starts with Dorothy and Uncle Henry on a ship to Australia. Dorothy accidentally falls overboard with a chicken coop and floats off into the land of Eve, not Oz. There, Dorothy meets a talking chicken named Belinda and a robot named TikTok. Then Dorothy meets Princess Ozma, who we know as the rightful ruler of Oz, and they travel together to free Ozma's royal family from the Gnome King. Now let's get into the movie. We start off with Dorothy in Kansas, 6 months after she goes to Oz the first time. She has insomnia and keeps talking about Oz to her aunt and uncle, but they think something's wrong with her. So they take her to a sanatorium to get electrotherapy, but she's rescued by another girl and escapes to a river with a chicken coop. Dorothy wakes up with her chicken, Belinda, who can now speak, and they follow a broken yellow brick road to Emerald City. But Emerald City's in ruins, and everyone got turned into stone. Dorothy gets chased by these scary things called Willers, but she gets saved by TikTok. And all of them go on a search to find the Scarecrow, who's being held prisoner by the Gnome King, the man that destroyed Oz. They meet Jack the Pumpkinhead, who is trapped by Mombi, and after a few more adventures, they free the Scarecrow, kill the Gnome King, and restore the Emerald City. Princess Ozma is freed from Mombi, and she's able to take the throne again. Then she gives Dorothy the ruby slippers so she could go back to Kansas. This movie was kind of weird, and it definitely would be scary if I watched this as a kid. It's kind of missing the whimsy that The Wizard of Oz has, and it's more dark and scary, kind of like The Wiz. But at least The Wiz is supposed to be in New York, so I understand why it's kind of dark and gritty. And it also has a fire soundtrack to make up for it. This movie was kind of all over the place, but it wasn't bad, so I give it 3 stars, and it's going in B tier below The Wonderful Land of Oz. This next film is another short animated film adaptation of the first book, The Wizard of Oz, 1991. This film, much like the others, follows the same formula of the tornado, the house, the shoes, the Scarecrow, Tin Man, Lion, Wizard, Wicked Witch, Glinda, and home. But this film is somewhat more accurate to the first book than other versions. It has the tiger and bear hybrid thingies that chase Dorothy and her friends. The Wicked Witch has an umbrella instead of a broom. Of course, she has the silver slippers. And there's some other things that happen in this film that don't happen in other adaptations. The animation is choppy at times, but I honestly don't know what these Letterboxd people expected from Golden Films. It's literally a company that got famous off of making straight-to-DVD Disney ripoffs. The movie wasn't bad, but I'm waiting for it to be great. So let's give it 3 stars, and it can go in B tier with the rest of the mid movies. And this time it can go above Wonderful Land of Oz. Now we break into the 21st century with our first film based off a book not written by L. Frank Baum, Lion of Oz from 2000. And the original book was written by Baum's great-grandson, Roger S. Baum. We know that L. Frank wrote 14 Oz books, but many people, including his great-grandson, continued on with the series after his death, even if it might not be canon. The young Baum ended up writing 15 Oz books himself, including The Lion of Oz. So let's get into the plot. It's about the Cowardly Lion and Oscar Diggs, who we know as the Wizard. The two work at a circus together in Nebraska, but one day, Oscar's hot air balloon floats away to Oz, and the lion falls out of the balloon, being separated from Oscar. The lion finds out that he can speak, and once he gets to Oz, he meets the Wicked Witch of the East, who assigns him to find the Flower of Oz. Along the way, he meets many friends and has many adventures, but if he doesn't find the flower in enough time, he'll lose his badge of courage. Now let's get into the movie. The film is pretty much the same as the book. The lion and Oscar are working at the circus when his hot air balloon floats away into Oz. When they get on the balloon, Oscar gives the lion a badge of courage for being brave while riding on the balloon. But the lion falls off the balloon into the forest. The Wicked Witch tells him that she's holding Oscar prisoner, and if he wants to save him, he has to find the Flower of Oz, because she needs its power to fully conquer Oz. So he goes on an adventure and meets a springy teddy bear, a toy soldier, a toy ballerina, and a young girl named Whimsic. By the end, they defeat the Wicked Witch, and she calls for vengeance. And he also finds out that Oscar isn't in prison, but he landed in the Emerald City. They also find out that Whimsic was the Flower of Oz all along. So I guess it's one of those Tip and Ozma situations. The lion lost his badge of courage in the battle, and he believes that he needs it to be brave. So he leaves his friends and decides to go on a quest to find Oscar to get a new badge of courage. And the film ends with him meeting the OG Wizard of Oz gang. This movie is overall very mid. The plot is fine, it's pretty similar to the book, but everything's pretty forgettable. The songs are, the animation is, the plot is. The only thing that stuck out to me was that Tim Curry was the toy soldier. Like, Tim was doing anything for the bag back then. But like I said, it was pretty mid, so I give it 2.5 stars. And it can go in B tier below Wizard of Oz 1933. The next film is also a pretty popular one, The Muppets Wizard of Oz from 2005, starring Ashanti as Dorothy. It's obviously another adaptation of the first book, so let's get into it. So, if 20th Century Oz is the Oz movie for rock fans, and The Wiz is the one for disco fans, this is the one for the pop R&B girlies. It starts off with Dorothy in a modern-day Kansas, working at Aunt Em and Uncle Henry's diner. She yearns to move away and become a singer, so she goes to an audition to go on tour with the Muppets. But she's late and ends up giving Kermit her CD demo. When she gets back home, a tornado has started and she runs inside her house to save Toto, which is not her dog, but her pet, Prawn. But the house gets caught up in the tornado and lands in Munchkinland. Toto wakes up and he's very large and can now speak. Toto being played by Pepe, by the way. Then everything goes as usual. The house, the Wicked Witch of the East, the Good Witch of the North, the shoes, the Scarecrow, the Tin Man, Lion, Wizard, the Wicked Witch, Glinda, and home. Kermit's the Scarecrow, Miss Piggy plays all of the witches, Gonzo's the Tin Man, and Fozzie Bear is the Lion. Queen Latifah's Aunt Em, and Kelly Osbourne and Quentin Tarantino are in here for some reason. It surprisingly has some things from the book that I haven't seen too much in other Oz films, like the green tinted glasses that they have to wear before entering Oz, since the Emerald City's not actually made out of emeralds, and the witch wearing an eye patch and having an all-seeing eye. Of course, they have some of the other things we see, like Dorothy having the silver slippers, the 4 witches, and Dorothy taking control over the flying monkeys at the end. I think people rating this movie are taking it a bit too seriously on Letterboxd. Like, it's obviously supposed to be camp, guys. It's stupid, it's funny, it's kind of bad, and it has pop culture references that no one will get in 25 years. But it's Muppets, and that's all that really matters. I gave it 3.5 stars, and it's going in A tier. Now we have another movie from 2005, another version of Baum's 7th book, The Patchwork Girl of Oz. Let's get straight into it. The whole movie is a pretty straightforward adaptation of the book. It's about Ojo and the Patchwork Girl trying to unfreeze his uncle and Pippin's wife. So they go on an adventure to get the tools to unfreeze them. The plot's okay, it's kind of boring at times and some of the scenes drag on too long. But the thing about this that makes it bad is the animation. The animation and some of the voice acting is really, really bad. And that's because it's low budget computer animation, so yeah, obviously. But it's so bad that it kind of seems like a parody, like Surreal Entertainment or Body's Basics or something. But even though it's pretty accurate to the book, the scripting is kind of weird and some of the characters keep repeating the same things over and over again. Like this glass cat keeps saying, "I'd have pink brains, you can see them work." And she says that at least 4 times. But it's very strange. So I gave it 1 star and it's going in D tier, above The Wizard of Mars because at least it was accurate to its book. After that, we have a film from 2011 called After the Wizard, an adaptation of the first book, The Wizard of Oz, after Dorothy goes back to Kansas. It's about a young girl named Dorothy, or Elizabeth, who is in an orphanage. She talks about her journey in Oz, but all of the adults in her life think that she's just making up stories to cope with her trauma. And I guess they also think she's just reading Baum's book too much, because the book exists in this universe. The Lion, Scarecrow, and Tin Man are in Oz, but they say it has gone to shambles ever since Dorothy left. So they try to get to Kansas in a hot air balloon, but the Lion stays back to fight off the flying monkeys. Tin Man and Scarecrow end up flying to the US, but they accidentally end up in New Jersey. They get help from various people who know the story of Oz, and with their help, they get to Dorothy. This movie has many flaws, like I'm not really sure if Dorothy or Elizabeth is mentally ill or not. She says her real name is Dorothy and she has been to Oz, but everyone in her life says that her name is Elizabeth. So it seems like she could just be making up stories. But also the Scarecrow and the Tin Man actually exist. Many people see them and help them get to Kansas, unless all of that was in her head the whole time. We never really get closure about if she's Dorothy or not, which is kind of upsetting. But I think the film has a good premise, and seeing the Tin Man and Scarecrow's interaction with the other people they meet along the way is pretty wholesome. I don't really appreciate the Cowardly Lion erasure though, because he never shows up for the rest of the film. But it was alright, I gave it 3 stars and it's going in B tier below Return to Oz. Next up, we have another crossover with a classic children's franchise, Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz from 2011. What a run-on sentence of a title. It's pretty much an adaptation of the 1939 film, but with Tom and Jerry, and we know that's based off of the first book. So this film is an exact replica of MGM's film, but it's animated and has Tom and Jerry slapstick humor slapped on it. It literally has the same exact shots from the film, and surprisingly, some of the same songs. I was like, how is it even possible that they copied so much from the film? But then I remembered that Warner Brothers owns both of these films, so that makes sense. It's okay to be honest. Tom and Jerry don't really add much to the plot though, and if you want to watch the exact same story but better, you might as well just watch the 1939 film. The animation is cute though, so I gave it 2.5 stars and it's going in B tier below Magical Cloak of Oz. After that, we have another very popular one, and it's also one that I watched in the movie theater at a very young age. Oz the Great and Powerful from 2013. Disney's second attempt at making an Oz movie after Return to Oz flopped. It's a prequel about a young Oscar Diggs, how he got to Oz and became the Wonderful Wizard. It starts off with Oscar in 1905 Kansas. He's a small-time magician and con man, working with a circus. A strong man sees Oscar flirting with his wife and tries to fight him, but Oscar gets in a hot air balloon and gets away. But a tornado comes in and sweeps Oscar away to the land of Oz. When he lands in Oz, he meets a witch named Theodora, and she believes that he's the wizard prophesied to defeat the Wicked Witch and become the new King of Oz. So Oscar lies to her and accepts the role so he can have wealth and power. Theodora then takes him to the Emerald City to meet her sister, Nora, so he can be crowned king. On the way there, he meets a flying monkey named Finley, and Theodora falls in love with him, even though they only known each other for like a few hours. Nora tells Oscar in order to be crowned king, he needs to defeat the Wicked Witch with his magic and steal her wand. So he goes on an adventure to get the wand, and on the way, he and Finley meet a girl made out of china whose home was destroyed by the Wicked Witch. When they get to the Dark Forest, they find out that the so-called Wicked Witch is actually not a Wicked Witch, but the past king's daughter, a good witch named Glinda. It is revealed that evil Nora is the true Wicked Witch, and she wants Glinda dead so she can take power in Oz. After seeing Oscar and Glinda have a romantic interaction through a crystal ball, evil Nora misleads Theodora into believing that Oscar made romantic advances at all three witches. So evil Nora offers Theodora an enchanted apple that will remove her heartache and jealousy. This apple changes Theodora, making her the true Wicked Witch and giving her green skin. She confronts Oscar and threatens to kill him. So Glinda brings Oscar to meet various groups of people in Oz, and he reveals to her secretly that he isn't the real wizard. But Glinda already knows this, and she says to him the people just need someone to keep them motivated, and that person has to be him. So with that, he makes a plan to defeat the Wicked Witch, and with his wit and an image projector, he makes it appear as if he transformed into an all-powerful wizard, defeating the two sisters and sending them away from the Emerald City. The film ends with Oscar's closest friends helping him to become the Wizard of Oz, and he and Glinda share a kiss. Well, this movie had a lot of potential. A prequel fully about the wizard hasn't been done up until this movie, and the premise was promising, but it does fall flat at some points, like Theodora's villain arc. Yes, Oscar was definitely in the wrong for playing in her face like that, but girl, y'all kissed one time and now you're saying we're gonna be together forever? Okay. I really like the beginning of the film when Oscar's putting on his show in Kansas, and they pay homage to the 1939 film by making it black and white at first, then changing it to color when they get to Oz. But some parts of this movie were really good, some of them were bad, but it's a fine movie, so I gave it 3 stars and it's going in B tier, and I'll even put it all the way at the front of B tier. The next movie we have is Legends of Oz, Dorothy Returns, from 2013. It's loosely based on another Roger S. Baum book from 1989 called Dorothy of Oz. So let's see about that plot. The book starts off with Dorothy a few weeks after returning to Kansas. She looks out her window and sees a rainbow with Glinda on top of it. She tells Dorothy that she needs to return to Oz to save the Scarecrow, Tin Man, and Lion from a jester who has taken over Oz. And on her journey to save her friends, she meets an owl, a marshmallow man, and a girl made out of china. Now onto the film. It begins with the Scarecrow sending a rainbow to Dorothy to bring her back to Oz, to save them from the jester who has taken over. The jester is the Wicked Witch's little brother. Back in Kansas, Dorothy wakes up and realizes that the tornado destroyed the family's house and the whole town. So a home appraiser comes to evict the family and the other citizens of the town. Dorothy sees the rainbow and it picks her up, transporting her in total back to Oz. While in the rainbow, the gang contacts Dorothy and tells her that they need her help. So when she gets there, she starts her journey to the Emerald City. Along the way, she meets an owl, a marshmallow soldier, and a princess made out of china, who follow her on her adventure. Eventually, they get to the Jester's castle and find out that he's been capturing various rulers of Oz and turning them into puppets, including Glinda and the rest of Dorothy's gang. They're able to defeat him, and Glinda sends Dorothy and Toto back to Kansas. When she's back in Kansas, she finds out that the appraiser is a con man, and everyone's able to keep their home. This movie was okay. It's a pretty basic Oz spin-off. I feel like everyone wants to make a film of Dorothy going back to Oz for some reason, and they all feel the same. But I was surprised that this film was where this meme comes from. But the movie was okay. It's a pretty average mid-Oz spin-off, so I gave it 2.5 stars, and it's gonna go in B tier below Wizard of Oz 1933. The movie after that is OzLand 2014, which is set in a dystopian Kansas, and it's based off of the first Oz book. It's about 2 men, Leaf and Emery, who live in a post-apocalyptic Kansas. They live as nomads, walking around and looking for food. One day, Leaf finds Baum's 1900 novel, The Wizard of Oz, and starts reading it to Emery. But Leaf believes that the book is non-fiction, and thinks that Oz might be his home, like Dorothy's home is Kansas. By the end, a tornado comes, and Leaf lets it consume him in an attempt to go to Oz and return home away from this life. This movie has a really interesting premise, but it falls flat, just with being boring and too long. I feel like it could have been a short film and it would have been much better. The whole movie is just the 2 men walking around, which is not very exciting, and I got bored very quickly. Also, the acting wasn't too good either, but it's an indie film, what do we expect? I gave it 1 star, and it's going in D tier below Patchwork Girl. The next film is Guardians of Oz, aka Wicked Flying Monkeys from 2015, and it's based off of various Oz books. After the Wicked Witch is melted by Dorothy, Glinda gives her a second chance and decides to revive her, but she takes her magic broom away. But of course the Wicked Witch goes back to her old ways, and she gets her flying monkeys to steal the broom from Dorothy's pals. The main character is one of the flying monkeys, Ozzy, who actually can't fly. He accidentally messes up their heist to steal the broom, so he's punished by the Wicked Witch, and his punishment is turning his father into a chicken. He's going to be arrested, but then he grabs the witch's magic broom and goes on a journey to Emerald City to get help. Along the way, he meets a young witch who is Glinda's niece, and he meets Dorothy's pals. By the end, Ozzy's able to defeat the Wicked Witch, his father's turned back to normal, and he learns how to fly. This film also has a pretty interesting premise, but it ends up being pretty boring. And all of the characters' voices are very strange, like they have nasal congestion or something. I gave it 2 stars, and it's going at the top of C tier. Next we have The Wiz Live from 2015. It's another adaptation of The Wiz musical, but unlike the 1978 film, it does take place in Kansas like Baum's book. This is not a regular film, it's a recording of a stage musical for TV, kind of like how they recorded Hamilton and put it on Disney+. But let's get into the film. So we have the basic Wizard of Oz plot. Kansas, the tornado, the house, Wicked Witch of the East, Good Witch of the North, the shoes, the Scarecrow, Tin Man Lion, Wizard, Wicked Witch, Glinda, and home. But they have a slight tension in the plot by making Dorothy's original home Nebraska and wanting to get away from Kansas to go back to Nebraska. But when she gets back from Oz, she realizes that she took Kansas for granted. Of course, this is more accurate to the Wiz musical and the 1900 book than the 1978 film. It also has the same soundtrack as the musical, which you know I love, since the Wiz has the best soundtrack out of any Oz adaptation. Fight me in the comments. But this is great music, great acting, and extremely star-studded cast, much like its predecessor. And it has all of the whimsy of the original book. I was wondering if I should put it above the 1978 film, since it's so nostalgic for me, but I think it will have to go above it. So I gave it 4.5 stars, and it's going in S tier, below The Wizard of Oz 1939. After that, there's a sequel to Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz, which is Tom and Jerry Back to Oz. It's based off of various Oz books, but mostly The Marvelous Land of Oz and Ozma of Oz. Literally right after Dorothy gets back from Oz, the family's cleaning up the damage from the tornado, and this guy, Mr. Bibb, threatens to take the animals away, unless the family can get money to keep them in 24 hours. But also, the winged monkeys are somehow in Kansas, and Dorothy's friends are in Kansas, asking her for help because the Gnome King has taken over Emerald City. So they go on a journey to see the wizard, who is in Kansas, to get his help to scare away the Gnome King, protect Emerald City, and save Dorothy's ruby slippers. This film is okay, honestly, it's just really boring. They sing some of the same songs from the 1939 film, like I guess we're just milking that. And the original songs they have are just mid. The movie is barely about Tom and Jerry, and they really add no significance to the plot, except the slapstick humor they have, and that's not even funny. The animation is cute though, and it's always nice to hear the MGM songs, but the movie just falls flat. So I gave it 2 stars, and it's going in C tier above Patchwork Girl. The next film is The Steam Engines of Oz from 2018, which is based on a graphic novel of the same name from 2013. The novel takes place in Oz 100 years in the future, where technology has advanced greatly. Oz is ruled by the Tin Man, the descendants of the Cowardly Lion, and various witches. It starts 100 years after the Wicked Witch has been defeated, and Oz is at risk of being taken over by the Tin Man as he expands Emerald City. The only hope to stop him is a young mechanic named Victoria Wright. So Victoria escapes the Emerald City with a munchkin and Oscar Diggs' brother, Patrick. They meet the descendants of the Cowardly Lion. They learn that the Tin Man is evil because he lost his true love when he turned into tin, so he created the Steam Engines of Oz to stop his true love from dying. By the end, Victoria gives the Tin Man his heart back, and he stops the war between the Ozians and Emerald City. This movie was something alright. It was honestly pretty boring and had bad animation. It seems like it could have had an interesting plot with the Tin Man having a villain arc, but it really falls flat for me. The most interesting part was the flashback scene about the Tin Man, which uses a totally different animation style. So I give it 1.5 stars, and it's going in C tier after 20th Century Oz. So next up, we have both parts of the Wicked series, Wicked 2024 and Wicked for Good 2025. Both of these films are based off of the Wicked musical from 2003, and that was based off of the novel by Gregory Maguire from 1995, which is the story of the Wizard of Oz told through the Wicked Witch's perspective. So it's basically a glorified fanfiction, which we love. Shout out to all the fanfic writers. But let's get into the book. It's about Elphaba, who was born with green skin after her mother had an encounter with a traveling businessman. When she's older, she attends Shiz University and is roomed with a rich and popular girl, Galinda, which they both aren't very happy about. But things change for the both of them when the professor, who is a talking animal, is found dead, and animal hate speech is promoted around the university. Galinda changes her name in solidarity with the professor, since he often mispronounced it as Glinda, and the two girls become closer. One day, Elphaba goes to the Emerald City to meet the wizard since he's heard of her great power, and Glinda comes along. But this trip changes their lives forever, thus making Glinda into the Good Witch and Elphaba into the Wicked Witch of the West. Now let's get on to the first film, which is based off of the first act of the Wicked musical. The governor of Munchkinland's wife has an affair with a mysterious traveling businessman and gives birth to a green Elphaba. Years later, Elphaba accompanies her sister, Nessa Rose, on her first day of Shiz University. Elphaba has an outburst displaying her great power and causing the dean, Madame Morble, to enroll her into the school and offer her private tutoring lessons. Then she is roomed with the popular girl Galinda, who yearns to be Marble's student as well. One night, Elphaba follows her professor Dr. Dilliman to an off-campus meeting about animals' rights, and she learns that animals are losing their ability to speak. She confronts him about this and says that the wizard can help make this right. Then a transfer student, Prince Fiyero, has a party at the Ozdus ballroom, and Galinda has eyes for him. But a munchkin boy named Bach has eyes for Galinda and asks her to the dance. But she tells him to ask out Elphaba's sister, Nessa Rose, who's overjoyed by this. Elphaba, being happy that Galinda helped her sister out, tells Morble to tutor Glinda. After a while, the girls stop being enemies and start growing closer as friends. But tensions are growing in Oz, and animals are starting to lose their rights. Dr. Dilliman is fired from teaching, and the students are shown animals in cages. Elphaba, being angry about this, escapes class with Fiyero and frees the young cub that's locked away in a cage. And the pair start to grow closer romantically, even though Fiyero's dating Galinda. Elphaba gets invited to see the wizard because he heard of her powers from Morble, and Galinda, who is now Glinda, goes with her. The wizard, now accompanied by Morble, tells Elphaba to cast a spell in the Grimoire, a spell book only the most powerful wizards can read. So she reads a spell that gives all of the monkeys wings. The wizard and Morble are happy about this since they can now use the monkeys as spies. But Elphaba realizes that the wizard is the one taking away the animal's rights, so he can gain more power. So she steals the Grimoire, tries to convince Glinda to come with her, but she refuses. She learns how to fly, and the wizard deems her as the Wicked Witch of the West. The film is very great. It has great music, great acting, and a stacked cast of actors. It's very watered down from the book though, to make it friendly for a child audience, but so is the musical, which it was mostly based off of. We can see that it takes some inspiration from the MGM film, since we have a green Wicked Witch, but it's a very good film, so I gave it 4 stars, and it's going in A tier below The Wiz. And finally, we have our last movie, Wicked for Good, from 2025, which is based off of the second act of the Wicked musical. Years later, after defying the wizard, Elphaba continues fighting for the rights of animals. Glinda is now the wizard's spokesperson and engaged to Fiyero, who is now the captain of the Emerald City military, so he's in charge of finding Elphaba. Elphaba visits her sister, Nessa Rose, who is now the governor of Munchkinland, and is preventing Bach from leaving her since she's in love with him, yet he does not reciprocate these feelings. Elphaba enchants Nessa's shoes to make her fly and to make her happy, and Bach hears about Galinda and Fiyero's engagement. He tries to leave so he can confess to Glinda, but Nessa takes the Grimoire from Elphaba and tries to cast a love spell on him so he will stay, but it goes wrong and almost kills him. Elphaba casts a spell to save him, but the spell turns him into a Tin Man and removes his heart. Then Elphaba returns to the Emerald City to visit Glinda when she and the wizard try to convince Elphaba to join him. She accepts this under one condition of the monkeys being freed, but then she learns that the wizard never was going to free all the animals anyway. So she releases all the animals and they ruin Fiyero and Glinda's wedding. Fiyero runs away with Elphaba, leaving a heartbroken Glinda, and Morble comes up with a plan to kill Nessa Rose so they can lure and capture Elphaba. So while Elphaba and Fiyero are having a romantic moment in their hideout, Nessa is looking for a tin box in the middle of a tornado that Morble made to kill her, and a house falls down, smashing Nessa. Glinda meets a young Dorothy, who is the owner of the house, gives her Nessa's shoes, and sends her to meet the wizard. Obviously, Elphaba's very upset by this, and the two girls fight until the military comes. But Fiyero comes in to save her, and threatens to kill Glinda if they don't let Elphaba go. So they do so, and then drag Fiyero away to kill him. So Elphaba casts a spell on him so he doesn't die, and that spell turns him into a scarecrow. Dorothy, Bach, Fiyero, and the cowardly lion that Elphaba saved when he was a baby go to meet the wizard, and of course he tells them to kill the Wicked Witch of the West and get her broom. So Galinda goes to Elphaba to warn her. Elphaba decides to surrender, and with a tearful goodbye, Glinda hides and Dorothy kills her with water. Glinda finds out that the wizard was Elphaba's father all along. She tells him and says that he needs to leave or she'll reveal that he's a fake, which he does and goes back to Nebraska on his hot air balloon. And then Madame Morble gets arrested. Glinda becomes the leader of Oz, vowing to give the animals their equal rights and to finally become Glinda the Good. Fiyero, now a scarecrow, finds out that Elphaba's not dead, she faked her death, and they run away from Oz together. Also, a very great film. Great songs, great acting. When I first watched it in the theater, I gave it 5 stars, but when I rewatched it, I realized that it does have some flaws. It's great, but it does seem a bit rushed at some points. And also, that CGI Jeff Goldblum was kind of bad. Like, we know what Jeff Goldblum looked like when he was young, and it wasn't that. But very good costumes, I did enjoy it. So it also gets 4 stars, and it's going in A tier, right below its older sister, Wicked 2024. Now we finally finished watching all of these Oz films. Here's our final tier list, with our best film being The Wizard of Oz 1939, and our worst film being Wizard of Mars 1965. And we can see most of these Oz films were pretty mid, since a lot of them are in B tier. So don't be mad at me, but I may have missed some Oz films, since it's really hard to gather up so many older adaptations from a century-old franchise. But I tried my best. Let me know down in the comments if I missed any important adaptations, and maybe I'll do a part 2 if this video blows up. But let me know what's your favorite Oz film, or your second favorite Oz film, because I know everyone's gonna say the Judy Garland version. Thanks for everyone who stuck around for the whole video. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I hope to see you in the next video.